Oh, there I am. I can tell it's been a while since I've done one of these. I forgot to turn the volume on my mic. Can you hear me now? I hope you guys can hear me now. Yay. Okay. I was just saying that if you're posting on Facebook, I won't be able to see who it is that's commenting. So I'm not trying to ignore the names. Oh, looks like some of them are coming through now. Well, no, it's not. It just says Facebook user. This is the first time I'm streaming to multiple platforms through this account. So it's a little bit, I'm kind of testing it out a little bit. But Facebook users, everybody, thank you for being here, because I will be able to see who's commenting once I go back and look at the actual feed. But we have 57 people already, so this is great. Yes, I had to turn my mic on, so I know you. That usually helps when you want sound. First, it's great to see everybody, quote unquote, see everyone. It's been a while since I've been here. Yes, Sue, you are here. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. And again, I can't see the Facebook usernames, so thank you to everybody on Facebook for being here. So if you're just learning about what's going on, or if you haven't read everything yet, what happened was that Kathleen filed or tweeted last night that we were going to find out today the identity of who it was that put the RAV4 on the property. She wasn't clear whether it was going to be something she was going to tweet, something she was going to file. If I talked to you this morning, then I was saying I really hope it's a filing, because her putting it on Twitter doesn't usually give me much hope, because she has never posted anything on Twitter that she wanted to save for the courtroom to file. Everything that's been meaningful has been filed first before she discusses it on Twitter. So I was really happy to see that it ended up being a filing. That's the first thing. Now, what this filing does, everybody should be familiar with this process by now, because she's done this several times. Up to now, it hasn't worked out so well, but every time is different. Thanks to everybody asking how I am. I'll get to that in a second. I'll add that somewhere in here, how I'm doing, but I'm doing good for right now. So what she filed is a motion to stay and remand. And that means that she's asking the Court of Appeals to pause the current appeal that's in front of them right now, which I don't know where they were in the process, because we weren't expecting an opinion for a while, the way things were looking. But she's asking them to pause that and to allow her to file a supplemental petition back with the circuit court. And the bad news is, yes, it's going back to Judge Sakevich, or just Judge S, whatever you want to call her. I'll even call her Judge Flowers for some of you, since I haven't been on in so long. So that's the bad news, is it's going back to her, because obviously, as we know, our track record with that judge has not been good. And she's given me no indication that that is going to change, because she has made some pretty egregious rulings just so that she can deny him. She's really went out on a limb and reached for her reasoning on some of her denials. So I still do not have faith in her. I don't. I would love to say, oh, this is it. This is going to be enough. I can already see where she's going to try to say that it's not. I can already see it. But I think this judge has her mind made up, and I'm not sure anything's going to change that. And believe me, I would love to be wrong. I'm just saying, so far, I have never seen anything from her up to this point to make me believe that she's ever going to side with Steve, because she's mainly seemed like she's gone out of her way to do the opposite of that. No other judge can be requested until this appeal has concluded. And that's the problem. And that's why we kind of wanted to get through this appeal, because then if the Court of Appeals rules in Steve's favor, then she can finally request a new judge, and she can get one. Travis is in there reminding everybody of all the previous motions. Thanks, Travis. He's saying the motion to remand for the computer, motion to remand for the rapid DNA testing and the bones. So those ones have all been, the Court of Appeals has granted them all, but then Judge S has denied them and they've just been added to the appeal. So again, anybody that's here from Facebook, it does not tell me who it is that's commenting. It just says Facebook user. So I see somebody saying hi to Meredith and hi to Angie. So thanks for being here, you guys. For some reason, now Monica's came through. Monica, yours says it's your name shows up. You're the only Facebook user your name's showing up. Don't know why. Sorry about that. Victoria, hi. Good to see you. Chris is here. Sue is here. I said that earlier. Kelly's here. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's what is happening here with this, what she's asking for. She's asking it for to be sent back to the circuit court judge so she can rule on what KZ is saying is a Brady violation. Again, I think everybody is familiar with the Brady violations at this point. We've seen enough of them. I don't know if Travis got that all in his head. Oh, hi, Stacy. Glad to see you. Hi, Kayla. Your name actually came up. So we've seen plenty of Brady violations, so we know how this all works. In order to establish a Brady violation, she has to prove that this was something that was suppressed by the prosecution, or in this case, possibly even the law enforcement. You know, that includes law enforcement, not just the prosecutor. Oh, hi, Jim. Nice to see you. It's been a while. Maureen, thanks for being here. She has to prove, and then she has to also prove that had it been disclosed, usually you would say, had it been disclosed, the verdict may have been different. It may have come out differently. In this case, she's actually not saying that. She's saying that it deprived him of a fair trial. That by not releasing this evidence to the defense at the time, Buting and Strang, it hindered his defense. He was not able to put on a complete defense, and therefore he did not get due process. He did not receive a fair trial. So that is what she's saying here. She's also stating the importance of it. The third thing is that the issue has to be material to the trial. I think everybody knows that this would definitely be material. And what she talks about the most in this motion is it's very material when it references Bobby Dassey. Because first off, from day one, they submitted a Denny motion to include Bobby as a third party suspect. And it was denied. But one of the things that they denied it, one of the reasons the judge denied it was because he said this they could not directly connect him to the crime. One of the prongs for the Denny ruling is that, and I'm sorry, you guys know I still have trouble stumbling over my words, so I'm really sorry about that. I hope everybody's following me. I still have issues with getting the words in my brain to come out my mouth. So in that respect, I'm still struggling a little bit with my illness, but I'm trying my best. So sorry if I'm stumbling a bit. One of the prongs for Denny is that the person has to have had a direct connection to the crime. And so this piece of information, a witness putting Bobby on the scene with the RAV4, would obviously be a direct connection to the crime. So that prong would be fulfilled. They would still deal with the motive prong, but again, that would be going back to, that's where the stuff on his computer would be important. Would be that would establish a motive because it's a pattern of behavior that allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, could establish that he had, Bobby had a predilection for wanting to cause harm to women, basically, is what I'll say. Thanks, you guys. You guys are always so great, even though I sound like an idiot sometimes. Okay, so what this is actually saying is that there was a man named Mr. Sawinski. He wasn't, I don't know if his first name was put on or not. I can't remember. I only read this once. So, oh yeah, it was. It's on here somewhere. Thomas Sawinski. That's it. Okay. So Thomas Sawinski, and what he's saying is that he worked he was a delivery person for the newspaper, for the local newspaper. And his job was to put the newspaper inside the mailbox at the salvage yard. So when he turned onto Avery Road, and Avery Road is the road that attaches to 147. You turn off 147 onto Avery Road. It's right where the big sign is. If anybody needs a visual of that, right where the big sign is, that's where Avery Road is. So you're not to the salvage yard yet, but you're on the road where that's the only place it goes is a salvage yard. That road doesn't go anywhere else but the salvage yard. So he's saying he turned onto Avery Road, and on the right side, which now it looks like left, but on the right side, he saw two men pushing what he's identifying as a RAV4. He says one of the men was shirtless, and he identified him as Bobby Dassey. The other man he identified of being older, possibly 50s, 60s, with a long gray beard, approximately 6 feet tall. I think he said he was kind of stocky. I can't remember the word he used. Big frame, I think is what he said. Now, I have no idea who that would be, because the usual people that come up when Bobby's being discussed are like his friend Mike or even Scott Todick. And that does not describe either of them. So I don't know who it could have possibly been. No idea. I'll let the rest of the gym or the internet sleuths, Jim. I almost said Jim. I've been too much gymnastics on the brain. I will let the rest of the internet sleuths try to figure that out of who that could possibly be, because I really don't know. And now he's saying he saw them pushing the RAV, and he went past them and he delivered his newspaper, put it in the mailbox. He turned around. And this time when he was heading back, he said that Bobby Dassey essentially jumped in front of him to try to keep him from leaving. Now, this is important because the first thing that any person is going to do to try to discredit an eyewitness is say that they didn't get a good enough look at the person. And in this case, it would have been dark because this was early in the morning. So he is very careful to mention in his affidavit that he had his lights on the entire time. Okay, that's just basically cutting that argument off right away. It's saying I had my lights on him the entire time. He was right in front of my vehicle. He even mentioned me looking into his eyes and seeing that Bobby was upset that he was there or didn't want him to be there. Now, there's issues with that. I will get into that in a little bit. But that's what he's saying. He said the other man kind of hunched down behind the open passenger seat, so he didn't see him as well. But the description he gave is what he saw. And then he just swerved around Bobby and got the hell out of there because he was now a little concerned for his safety. So Travis is saying, so the way you would push the RAV would line up with the palm print. Possibly, yes. I do have some other issues with this, and I will cover that because I'm always asking questions. This is what I do. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't play devil's advocate every once in a while or all the time, because I want to make sure everybody has enough to think about to form their own conclusions. Again, just because I say something doesn't mean you have to think the same thing, but I like to give everybody as much information as I can so that they can make their own informed decision on how they feel about this new information. Now, Mr. Swinski, I already forgot how to say his name. Oh, my damn memory. It's just terrible. Whatever it is, Swinski. He said that once it was on the news, he called the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department and reported this information. He talked to a female person. I don't think it was a deputy or anything. It must have been was a dispatcher or something, but he talked to somebody that answered the phone there, and it was a female. And he gave them the information, and the person said, "We already know who did it," which is wrong. But I mean, it's wrong to say that. You should never say that ever. You should take their information without any of your bias involved and pass it along. And you should be getting in touch with everybody who has potential information that could lead to solving a crime. Whole nother issue on their crappiness as investigators. We all know this, but yeah, that their first mistake was saying we know who did it, because no, you're in the middle of an investigation. You don't know squat at that point. Anyway, that's what he said. And he never got a call back. So he just went on with his life, figured it wasn't important, which is unfortunate because that happens with a lot of witnesses. They just assume that the police have the right guy. And so what they had wasn't important because some other information must have been more important that makes his not that relevant. And it's terrible that witnesses always feel that way because this has happened so many times because witnesses don't get contacted and they don't keep up with the contact or they don't keep badgering the police about it because they just assume that, well, if they know who did it, then they know. And it's unfortunately, it happens too much. And that is a big problem. He went on with his life. He says he watched Making a Murderer and the first season. And at that point, he decided to contact the defense team, which would be Buting and Strang. He said he never heard back from them. Now that is, I don't know what to make of that because I don't believe that Buting and Strang would just ignore that, especially when they were filing a Denny motion naming Bobby Dassey. So whether it got lost, I mean, it just would be like, how much of bad luck can a guy have, for Steve that seriously, like the signals got crossed, his message got lost, it didn't get left with the right person. I don't know what happened, but there's no way. Oh, was it appellate counsel, Travis? Oh, okay, that's who he contacted, was appellate counsel. I thought he contacted his defense team. Okay, well then it explains it. If he contacted the appellate counsel, this was prior to Kathleen. These were the essentially public defender appellate counsel. Sorry if I didn't remember that part. Yeah, if this was appellate counsel that he called, well then I can understand it because those people don't care. Too many cases, too overworked, and not going to care. Well, that's unfortunate. Okay. Anyway, he didn't contact anybody else again after that. It doesn't sound like, until he contacted Kathleen, which was just this week or last week, one of the two. Now, just like everybody else, I'm sure is wondering, why did it take him so long? Kathleen, there is no secret that Kathleen Zellner has been trying to free Steve. And if he lives in the area, there is no way he can get around the fact of knowing that Kathleen Zellner is on this case and she's looking for information. I mean, there's even billboards, there's everything. There's no way you can avoid knowing what is going on or who is looking for information on this case. So, okay, I'm just looking at the question. Sorry. So anyway, so we don't have an answer for that. There's no answer explaining why he didn't try to make contact again after Kathleen Zellner took over. I think that's an important explanation. It really is, because you do need to know. He says he wasn't given any incentive. We all know there's a billboard out there with a reward on it. And Travis just said the same thing. I wonder if he called and on the billboard reward. We don't know. They're stating that he's not getting anything for this, but if it leads to the arrest and conviction of somebody, he qualifies for the reward. So it does bother me a little bit that he didn't come forward again, like when there's no reason he should have been holding on to this too long. The other things that kind of bother me about this affidavit, and again, this is just me just thinking things through and trying to look at it from all sides, because that's what I do. And Saperkop saying the affidavit isn't specific enough. And I agree. It's not specific enough in some areas, but it's too specific in other areas for my liking. The fact that he said, first off, he couldn't remember the make and model of his own car, but he was able to identify it as a RAV4. That bothers me. Where I already think we're having a memory issue if he can't remember his own car. And he remembered the color, but you can't remember the make and model of your own car. That's not going to help. That's something that the prosecution is going to jump on for sure. The fact that he said he was so specific that Bobby jumped in front of the car. I had my lights on him the whole time. I could look him right in the eye and I could tell he didn't want me there. Okay. Affidavits, for all intents and purposes, are the same as testifying in court. If he actually goes in court and testifies, I knew he didn't want me there, there would be an objection within a heartbeat. It wouldn't even take a half a second for there being an objection because he's drawing conclusions. You're not allowed to do that. he doesn't know what Bobby was thinking if he did see him there. So it makes me wonder, why was it put there? It seems like you're just trying to make it sound more believable. And there was another thing that was the same type of thing. Oh yeah, and them saying right there, Maureen, you just said it. Them saying that they looked creepy. Okay, it was dark out. They're pushing a car. Bobby's not wearing a shirt in November. Yeah, I can admit that it might look creepy. But again, to put it in there like that, I would be objected to, because again, you're drawing a conclusion. So that's not something you can say in a court. And if you can't say it in a court, honestly, it's not going to do any good in an affidavit. The judge isn't going to take any of that into consideration. There's the question of, and Sapper Cop's asking right now, did he know Bobby? He doesn't make any mention that he knows Bobby. And again, I read through this quick, so correct me if I'm wrong. So we don't know if he's identifying him as Bobby after the fact, or if he did in fact know who Bobby was. No, I don't think Pete ever had a long beard, and Pete is short. He would not qualify for a 6-foot big framed man. There's no way. And Angie and Travis are both pointing out that he might have driven different cars, like he might have shared cars with his parents or something, or I have no idea. So it's possible. It is possible. I just think it's odd. It's odd that you would know. Let me back up for a second. Again, it's kind of the same question as we're asking with Bobby. Did he know at the time that it was a RAV4, or is he now in hindsight saying it was a RAV4? Hi, Julie. He's saying it says he witnessed an individual who I later realized was Bobby. But again, like, how much later? Like, when did you realize it? Because if he called the police, did he know at that time that it was Bobby? Because he called within a week or so, I think. So if he called, did he know it was Bobby then, or did he not learn it was Bobby until Making a Murder aired, which is sometime later? And Bobby, so, and I'm just looking at that as things that could be problematic with this affidavit if it goes back to the circuit court. But the biggest obstacle here that I'm seeing is lack of corroboration. I have talked about this before. This has come up many times, because I think at the time we were talking about the fact that even if somebody came forward and confessed, that doesn't mean the court is going to accept that confession. There needs to be some kind of corroboration. And I'm not seeing any corroboration that was mentioned here. It was later that day on the 5th that he called. I am so sorry, you guys. I should have read this again before I came on, because I just read it really quick. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And they really shouldn't have been saying that they knew who did it, because they didn't know who did it at that time. But anyway, okay. So what I was saying is that I don't want to get too off track, because I get confused easily, as everybody remembers. There needs to be corroboration. Now, the thing that would make this motion more bulletproof and really have a hard time calling it into question is if there's a copy of him calling back when when he first saw it, if there's a copy of him talking to a female officer and saying exactly what he said in his affidavit, that would be the best corroboration they could find, because right there is a proof positive that he's telling the truth, at least about some of it. So there's no reason to doubt he's telling the truth about all of it. It would be nice if you could find a copy of him calling and talking and leaving a message for the appellate counsel, but I don't even call that a long shot. That's not going to happen. Unless it's in the appellate counsel's notes somewhere. If they could go back to the appellate counsel's case notes and find a message in there somewhere that he called, that would also be great corroboration. Him corroborating that he worked for the newspaper, that he would have delivered it at that time, not a bad thing, but I don't see that as being enough. If they have some type of work records showing that he would have been there at the time he was, again, good. That would be great. Now, here's one of my other questions while I'm at it. There's actually 138 people watching right now, Kelly. So, well, maybe only 71 are on YouTube. I think the rest are on other platforms. That's why I did it multi-platform. But we have 138 people, which is awesome. Here's the other thing that does bother me a little bit about this whole thing. Where he saw them pushing it. He said they were on the right side, which means they were pushing it from 147, I'm assuming, to the salvage yard. You can't get to where that car was found pushing straight to the end of that road because there were too many cars in the way. There was too much other stuff in the way. And there was a little lake there. Okay, AC is saying that it was not in what was released via FOIA because we did get a copy of a lot of the tips. And I didn't recall there being one. So I'm glad that AC confirmed that. Rookie confirmed that because I don't remember there being one. And I think it would have been a big deal if it had been in there. So whether that was, but if they're trying to suppress it, they would purposely leave it out. So a little more digging needs to be done to see if they suppressed it, because honestly, are we surprised if they suppress anything at this point? No. They suppressed it for the trial. They're certainly going to suppress it in a FOIA request. You can't trust them. Okay, so what I was saying is that if you continue to push straight down that road, you can't get that car to that location. It has to go through the access road. And to get to the access road, you either have to go past Bobby's house and Steve's trailer, or you have to push it through the quarry. So where they were seen pushing it is very odd to me, because that's a lot of pushing, first off, for something that would have had to have been done pretty quickly, I would think. Now, maybe they were planning on turning the lights on and turning the motor on when they were away from the main street. That's a possibility. But I definitely have questions about that. And Kabloom was saying, yes, how do you confirm something LES suppressed? Exactly. That's the problem with this whole issue of corroboration. Because they have, one of the things Kratz said was that, I'm not going to say it word for word, but essentially was saying that Bobby had no reason to lie on the stand. Well, we know now that's not true. He had a lot of reasons to lie. But if you're not given the opportunity to corroborate that, nothing is taken, now the stuff on his computer, and there's a lot of other things that have come up that could definitely call into question his testimony. And Brady violations include impeachment testimony. Even if it wasn't something that could directly clear Steve, which it's not. Seeing two people push a car is not going to prove that Steve didn't do it. But it goes towards impeaching a witness. And that is also a Brady violation. You cannot suppress something that could be used to discredit a witness, especially the person who ended up being the star witness for the prosecution. Yeah, they didn't have much time to get there. Maybe they were pushing it from the garage to not wake up, but they were pushing it. It was off of 147 is where they were pushing it. They were pushing it down Avery Road from 147. They were nowhere near the garage, and they were going towards the salvage yard, which again is a lot of pushing. Now, maybe they felt like they didn't want to start it up or turn any lights on until they got further away from 147. So maybe once they got actually to the salvage yard, they were willing to turn it on and move it and go over the access road. That's possible. It's just that, these are questions that I would love to have answered. I would love more details. Well, they weren't home. November 5th is when everybody was gone. So it depends when it was pushed there. If he's saying November 5th, right? He's saying that's when he saw it that morning, correct? On November 5th? I have it right in front of me. Yeah, on Saturday. It's right here in front of me. On Saturday, November 5th, I was delivering papers on the Avery salvage yard in the early morning hours before sunrise. Again, that's what tells us that it was dark. I drove down Highway 147 and turned left onto Avery Road. Soon after I turned onto Avery Road, I witnessed an individual who I later realized was Bobby Dassey and another unidentified older male pushing a dark blue RAV4 down Avery Road on the right side towards the junkyard. So that's the essential part right there. Okay, and then Julie just paraphrased me, so I don't have to find it, which is awesome. I think Stephen Avery never would have been convicted had this evidence been known during his trial, and it destroys Bobby Dassey's credibility and links him to the crime. If anything, it certainly would have bolstered their Denny claim against Bobby. So there's two issues here. First of all, it could have meant that he could have been presented as a third-party suspect, in which case he would probably not have been their star witness. They probably would have wanted to keep him off the stand as much as possible. And the fact that, as I just said, he was their star witness. So they would have been able to impeach his credibility if they'd had this information. Yes, and it does. And the other thing that's a problem is it does contradict some other previous things that Kathleen has said. Like Brendan's brother saw Bobby driving in the blue RAV. It kind of contradicts that. But so that's the thing that I think this is great. Having an eyewitness is a great thing. Having more information is great. Whether it's going to fly in the circuit court, I'm not sure. Just because, as I was saying, these are already reasons that can give the judge a reason to kick it. And she doesn't even need a reason. She'll just do it. So that's my thoughts on it right now. And again, I think anything that is filed with the court means it's a big deal. I'm not sure if Kathleen is holding on to things that she's planning on presenting when it's actually back to the circuit court. She doesn't have to present everything now in this affidavit. She just basically has to give them the overall reason why she wants to remand it back to the court. Because if you remember, once it's remanded, she's going to have to file a supplemental brief, which will probably contain more details. So she may have more corroboration. We just don't know it yet. So I also don't want to jump the gun and say that, well, we don't have these things. There are going to be things that we don't know yet that will come out probably once the full brief is released. But as always, I try not to get my hopes up too much just because of this judge. I don't have any confidence in her ever doing the right thing. Okay, Julie's saying I don't think it contradicts. Like you said, he was seen pushing it, but if turned down, yeah, I mean, he could have later, like I said, they could have planned on turning it on, or not planned, but actually turned it on when they were further away from the road, because 147 is a main highway. So I could see why they wouldn't want anybody seeing any lights turning down that street the day that they were planting evidence. So it certainly makes sense that they wouldn't want anybody to see that. You can drive it without the lights on, but I don't know. But well, then if you put the brakes, brake lights would go on. So yeah, so there are a lot of reasons to not be using the vehicle, to be pushing it. And they may have intended to start it up later, because at that point, everybody was gone. There's nobody there. I'm trying to remember. Steve left at about 6 a.m., I thought. So I'm not sure if the timeline's a little... This is where I'm going to rely on you guys again, because again, sorry, unfortunately, my illness still wreaks havoc with my memory. And does anybody remember exactly when Steve said he left that morning? Yeah, he just says it was the early morning hours before sunrise. Anyone want to look up when sunrise was on that date? So we know what time? Steve left the morning of the 5th. Everyone else, like Chucky and they left on the previous night. But Steve and Dolores were going up that morning. And I think it was at Blaine too. Okay. Oh my God. I'm so sorry about the details, you guys. I'm losing people probably because I'm having mental moments. Okay. So is this going to delay her already filed brief or motion? Okay. So I know this is the next part that people want to know. Yes. And that's why I'm saying that this has to be big. Oh, 6:38 a.m. Did you just look that up? Okay. So 6:38 a.m. was sunrise. So if Steve left at 6 a.m., like I'm thinking is what he said, that gives them a window prior to sunrise where it would have still been dark. It gives them about a half-hour window there. where the paper guy could have seen them before sunrise and since Steve left. So timeline does work in that respect. Now, if he's saying it was at 5 o'clock or something, then that's different because Steve would have still been there, but he could have been sleeping still at that point. I don't know. Again, I'm always saying both sides. Like, I'm just the good and the bad, or, what seems solid, what seems like it could be called into question. That's all I'm trying to do. Okay. So I know a lot of people want to know what happens at this point. This is going to be treated just like before. First, we have to wait for the Court of Appeals. Hopefully by tomorrow, they were going to have to find out if they're going to grant this motion. Now, the difference is this is an entirely different stage. We are in uncharted territory here because it is not, you do not see this. You do not see somebody submit their entire case. The briefs have gone to the appellate judges, and all of a sudden they're like, hold on, we have more new evidence. It just doesn't really happen. Okay, so Steve called you at 5. Okay. I'm just curious for the timeline. It doesn't really give me anything one way or the other, but I just want to see if whether Steve would have been there or not. Yeah, and if Dolores was still home, that could be why it was being pushed for sure. Absolutely. Okay, so Steve called Ma at 5:40 a.m. Brian came home and showered and they left. Okay. So yeah, so they left, probably around 6 o'clock, I would think, or a little after, by 6:15, probably, something like that. I'm just reading some of the questions. Sorry, guys. Stephen called Ma at 5. Yeah. Okay. 6:33 a.m. Saturday was sunrise in Manitowoc County. Okay. Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Thanks for looking that up. I was curious. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of the timeline we're talking about. I said I still think there's at least a good half-hour window in there where they might have left and it still would have been before sunrise. But again, as was pointed out, they may have been pushing it because somebody was still home and they wanted to get it past Dolores's house. It's still risky though. It's risky because at any time Steve could be driving down to pick up Ma. It's a huge risk to do that. But if they're already gone, not so risky. And again, it would make more sense to me that maybe they were just pushing it a little bit so that they could get away from the highway without anybody seeing any lights. But it's all speculation. I could do that all day. So anyway, okay. So the Court of Appeals has to grant this motion first. And if they do, they are going to suspend anything pending on this appeal, which means it comes to a halt. It's not moving forward anymore. Not that it was moving forward a whole lot at this point anyway. And they will send it back to the circuit court. At that time, the Court of Appeals will probably, just like they did before, they will probably give her a time frame of how long she has to file a brief, and then and then how long the prosecutors have to file their response to her brief. And then it's submitted to the judge. The judge takes however long she needs to make a decision. Now, this is where it gets really weird. Like I said, we're really in some crazy, bizarro world courtroom stuff. If the judge does see it Steve's way, then they would have an evidentiary hearing on just that one thing, forgetting about all the other stuff in the appeal, on that one thing. And then it would go to the judge to decide whether it has any merit after the evidentiary hearing, in which the judge would have to decide whether to overturn his conviction or deny it and uphold his conviction. In that case, then it would go back and be part of the appeal that is in front of them right now. If it's denied outright, it will be added to the current appeal. And hopefully then I would suspect, since briefs have already been turned in, the court would ask for supplemental briefs. They wouldn't have to file a whole new huge brief. It would be a supplemental brief addressing this one issue that would be added to the briefs that have already been submitted to the Court of Appeals. But again, we're talking time. This is really going to be dragged out even longer now, which is why there's no way that Kathleen would be doing this unless it had the potential to be huge. There's no way she did this as another, well, I just want to make sure I throw everything in there. This would actually really have to have a lot of merit for her to take this step, because we are potentially looking at pushing everything back another year when we are already probably looking at end of the year to get a decision from the Court of Appeals. So to get a response from the Court of Appeals, we're talking about possibly 18 months to 2 years of pushing this decision back. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Now, don't even ask me what happens. This is a really strange situation, but if they have an evidentiary hearing, she grants the motion, they have an evidentiary hearing, and she overturns Steve's conviction. I know the thought of that blows my mind because I don't see her ever doing that. But let's just say she did. Then you're in really bizarre territory because she still has a bunch of claims that are pending in the Court of Appeals. I would assume that at that point, you'd have to push those appeals to continue on, to go through. Or somehow, I don't know how they would do that, because you can't just now ignore all of these other claims and act like they didn't exist. And you shouldn't have to forfeit all those claims just because you won on one later claim. I would still think the court needs a rule on the existing claims in the current appeal. Travis, maybe you can shed some light on this, because to me, it is unheard of. I've never heard of anything like that happening. Oh, so what is the procedure? Because I guarantee you this is not in the rules of procedure anywhere. So not that I could find anyway. It might be what lawyers have, but not in the public rules of procedure. So the appellate court would indicate that they're rendered moot? Really? So you're forfeiting all of those other claims on this one claim? Because if Steve loses, like if he is granted a new trial and then he loses, and it's like all this other stuff is just loss. Ugh. Maureen is asking if this is just based on this guy's word, would KZ file? No, I don't think she would. I think she needs some kind of corroboration, and she knows this. So that's why I'm trying to be optimistic that there's going to be more that we're going to learn once she actually files the brief with the circuit court. Because again, she doesn't have to give the Court of Appeals all the information. She doesn't have to show her entire hand right now. She just has to give them enough information to let them know that this needs to be evaluated by the circuit court. Yes, but Travis, if all the claims are actually evaluated, how can you not evaluate all these current claims? How can you just say like, oh, forget it now? You can't just evaluate one on this entire petition and then say, because that's essentially what would happen. I don't know. Doesn't seem right to me. Yeah. Okay. I would say, I don't know how they're going to sort it out at all. I wouldn't even want to hazard to guess how they're going to sort it out. If what she submitted is enough to get the conviction overturned, yes. But again, if Steve is convicted again, I guess if the conviction was overturned, then it would render them moot because they're going to have a new trial. Yeah. So I guess that does make sense. If this one is approved and his conviction is overturned, you don't need the other ones because he's going to have a new trial where hopefully none of these procedural mistakes will be made. It's like starting over. So yeah. Okay. I just had to think that through for a second, but yes, it would render them moot. Pretty sure. Because that's the only thing that would make sense. It seems like a waste to let them get away with all this suppressing crap. But the point is that they wouldn't be able to get away with it during a new trial. The new trial would start from scratch. And there they would not be able to get away with all the crap they got away with on this one. Okay. So thanks, Travis. I just had my brain's not as sharp as it used to be. I have to think things through a little more. Well, that's my worry too. Sapper Cop is saying if remand gets approved, it will die on Flower's desk. And I have to say that, being that I think right now there's no corroboration that would warrant her giving it the merit it should get. But again, what we know now is not everything KZ has. So I'm still optimistic that KZ has something else, has corroboration of some sort. And if she has the actual recording of him calling, that's a slam dunk because that proves they suppressed it. If they have that recording of him calling Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department and there's a recording of him saying, hey, I saw these two guys pushing a RAV4 towards the salvage yard, that is absolutely without a doubt a Brady violation. Because his defense team was never made aware of an eyewitness. Well, that's a thing. I was hoping when she first tweeted last night. I didn't put it in the group till this morning, but I did see the tweet when she first tweeted it last night. And I was thinking about it, and I was really hoping that this new information that could lead to who planted the RAV was going to be this lost flyover 8mm coverage. I was really hoping that was it. And who knows? She might have that. I don't know. I don't know what she has and what she doesn't have. Yeah, why wouldn't that be exhibit 2? I don't know, Travis. I really don't. That's why I'm a little confused by this whole thing, because to me it doesn't seem like there's enough there, but I can't see her. I shouldn't say to me there doesn't seem to be enough there. I think there seems to be things that could definitely be called into question. I don't think it's a slam dunk, especially in front of Judge Flowers. So it just makes me think there's got to be more, because she doesn't have to present everything to the Court of Appeals, but she should at least have more. She might not want to give too much of a heads up to the prosecution. She might just be giving enough to get it remanded. And what I was just going to say, what Travis just said, but you're also risking losing on the motion to remand. She could file a motion to reconsider with more information maybe, but you are risking losing this motion to remand if you don't have, if it's insufficiently pled. If she gets a new trial, would she handle it? I do not know, because she's not a trial attorney. I mean, she's certainly done trials in civil cases, but she's not really known for being a criminal trial attorney. I think she would, but she'd have another second chair that specializes in criminal trial work. Because she's appellate attorney, but I don't know what she's done in previous when a lot of her cases don't ever go back to court. Usually she finds enough evidence that it's just overturned and that's it, and they don't refile charges. If there is a new trial and the state says they won't do the new trial, can Steve still sue? Yes. Anytime. I mean, if they overturn his conviction and the state decides not to refile charges, that is considered a wrongful conviction. He's exonerated at that point. Even if they still think he did it, you will hear that in Ryan Ferguson's case. The police still came out and kept saying they still thought he was guilty. They still thought he was the right guy. Doesn't matter. He's still exonerated. He's still wrongfully convicted, and he can sue. Yeah, no, Kathleen would never walk away completely, but she would work with the trial attorneys. And that's why I think she would still be probably the first chair, and then she would just have another trial counsel with her, at least maybe one or two. She can afford a whole team. So yeah, it would definitely be a much different trial than it was the last time. It would be a night and day trial. Yes, I definitely would not get too excited because, again, anything going to Judge Sakevich, I just don't trust. And so I would not get too excited just for that. But I am excited about having some new evidence. I just wish that there was some corroboration that I'm not seeing, or maybe I'm not thinking about. I just wish there was some corroboration to it, because that would just strengthen it. Okay. He says it. So does anybody else have any questions? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover, but be prepared for, I know everybody has been getting very restless. We've been waiting a long time for something to happen. And this is exciting that there's new evidence, but it's also going to delay things. So as usual, it's like, hurry up and wait. So we want to get this part remanded. We want to get a brief. We want to get a decision from the judge. So there'll be some activity, assuming they approve it. If they don't approve it, then they have to take into account that this is new evidence that could be at least be presented, that should be allowed to be presented in another petition. If they deny it for some reason, the Court of Appeals has to make allowances for that. And I do not know if it's in their practice to remand something once briefs have been submitted and accepted. I do not know that because, again, I've never heard of it happening. So Julie has everything up on the Work with KZ website. It's just workwithkz.com. So if you want to look at anything there, she usually does a good summary and sometimes includes some of my comments so people know what to expect. Okay, so yeah, if they have corroborating evidence, they're screwed. I mean, they really are, because especially if you get a recording from the sheriff's department that shows that he did in fact call and told them that he was an eyewitness to seeing somebody moving the RAV. I mean, you can't, even Judge Flowers can't ignore that. You cannot ignore that. That was some major suppression of very important I'm not going to try to say it right now. Exculpating. I get tongue tied too easily. Exculpating evidence. Yeah, I have to believe that she's trying to get that recording. I'm sure she's been trying to get that 8mm tape that they referred to. I'm sure she's covering all her bases. Kathleen, if anything, is always very thorough. Exculpatory. Thanks, Travis. Come on, I've said that word 100 times in the past. I can say it. Just my brain don't work right now. My brain is dumb. Don't blame me for my brain being dumb and I can't remember procedure. Oh, is Allie here too? Hi, Allie. Miss you. I miss a lot of you guys. I know I don't talk to you as much as I should, and I don't keep up with things as well as I should, but Natalie is asking, how will this affect Brendan? This will not do anything other than what was pretty much already the case with Brendan. I think his attorneys are waiting to see what happens with this case, because there'd be no point in them presenting a bunch of the same evidence, because the court would never rule on it. They'd never rule on it until the Dill Steves case is done. So there's no point in showing their hand yet. And it sucks. The longer Steve case drags out, the longer Brendan's going to be where he is. But it really doesn't make sense for his team to file anything right now when we don't know what they're going to do with Steve's. Because if Steve is granted a new trial on something that was also part of Brendan's trial, well, then Brendan pretty much gets an automatic reversal. How does this affect Bobby's parents? I don't know what you mean, Travis. Well, they're not going to be happy. I can already tell you, Barb is going to be very unhappy. And I'm sure she will express that. She is very loyal to Bobby and does not believe he had anything to do with it. And she's been very clear about that. And, as a mother, I can't fault her for that. And I've always been very much I've been disturbed by the stuff that's been found on Bobby's computer, but I've still always been very careful that I do not like throwing accusations around without having all the evidence and without, a person is still supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. We don't like that the guys were falsely accused and then convicted based on shoddy evidence and half truths and whatever else went on. So I don't do that to other people. I'm not comfortable doing it. Hi, Jess. Long time no talk. Yeah, Twitter is changing it now, where Twitter is going to have their own live stream available, but for now they're still using Periscope. So I finally just set it up. I just set up Periscope, and before I couldn't link it to my Facebook group. There was some error I kept getting, and so today I decided to try it again. Apparently the family page is blocking people who post this link and or talk about this, and that is their right. And I obviously used to be an admin in that group, and I totally understand. It is run by the family. The family does not want anything in there that's accusing another family member, and that is their right to do so. There are plenty of other places, other groups, Yeah, Twitter, Reddit. There are plenty of other places that it can be discussed, and they still have the other group, the Project Avery Dasser one that I think you can. Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me because that's always been the MO. They don't post things that are accusing family members, so they won't post this. And that, like I said, that is their right. People disagree with it, but I have rules in my group. They're allowed to have rules in their group, and it is run by the family. And so it's very hurtful to see that because they very firmly believe that Bobby is innocent. Thanks, Kathy. Who's Allie? You remember her, Stacy? Okay, Travis, what are you saying now? Just pointing out that there is a legal aspect of showing a viable Denny third-party suspect, and I knew it was Bobby. Well, I think the fact that this, again, bolsters the third-party suspect evidence is definitely helpful. Because one of the reasons it was denied was that I said there was no connection to the crime, direct connection to the crime. And again, if he was pushing the RAV4 on the day it was found, yeah, that's definitely a direct connection to the crime. Bye, Jess. Thanks for dropping in. You can watch later. And we need to have dinner soon. I'm just reading through the questions. Sorry, guys, or the comments. Yeah, it did. I mean, I'm not even going to touch on that because I try to not go into my personal feelings about things too much. But everybody knows how much I adore Brendan, and I wouldn't want anything to stand in the way of his freedom, even if it's something that he would be upset about. But if he's innocent, which I'm not going to say if he's innocent. He don't belong to be where he is, and he needs to be released, even if it ends up that somebody else in the family is responsible. Do I think they could still track down that 911 call? Anything's possible. But if it was purposely left out of the FOIA request, I think if they were smart, they just get rid of it. But I don't know how those systems work. I don't know how they worked back then. I don't know if there's a record of something like that. I really don't know how that all works. So I don't know if it's how easy it is to just get rid of something that's in a digital system or an automated system. Okay, so you asked Buting if he can confirm the witness reached out to him or Strang. And this is the thing. I mean, if they reached out to Buting, I know that Strang is just not all that into the case anymore. Buting is still very passionate about this case. Very passionate about this case. So there's no way if he knew about this, there's no way that he wouldn't have shared that with KZ. No way. Zero chance. So I don't think that they would have known about it. Okay, so yeah, so what Travis is saying, my point is that what is more significant about the motion is a real strong Brady claim, not that any individual may or may not have done again. Okay, this is absolutely correct. And this is the part that, that I'm glad you brought that up, Travis, that we do have to make sure. That's why, in the beginning, and I probably didn't specify it enough or emphasize it enough, this is a Brady claim. They're not filing this just as a witness to a crime came forward. They're filing this as a Brady claim, as that there was a witness and his information was suppressed. But that's why I also think you need to have some corroboration proving that it was suppressed. And that's why I don't see her filing this unless she has something like that. Okay, Buting said that the state never revealed this witness to them. I didn't think so because there's no way Buting would sit on it. Oh, okay. So he just said in the document, the witness says he reached out to Stephen's team after watching Making a Murderer 1. So that's why I assumed it was Buting and Strang because they're the ones that are featured in the documentary. But yes, they could have reached out to his appellate counsel at that point, which how would they even know who the appellate counsel was? It just seems odd. Seems like an odd choice, but well, Fen, that's what Travis and I were kind of talking about before. If she had corroborating evidence, wouldn't she have included it in that document? That certainly would have made a stronger claim to get it remanded. But she's not required to provide every detail of this claim right now. So I'm not sure about that. But I can't believe that she would take this step without some type of corroboration. Because no matter what, even if Judge Sakevich denies it quickly, you're still pushing this back probably a couple months, at least a few months, depending on how the Court of Appeals would handle a supplemental brief. I don't know if they get pushed all the way back to starting over, which that would be another year, so it just seems like a very drastic step for something that isn't like a sure thing. Yeah, if the guy was watching the media and watched Making a Murderer, I don't understand why he would go to any attorneys other than Buting and Strang, because Kathleen came on afterward. But if it was after he watched it and he wasn't sure about, if he didn't know about Kathleen, then I would see him going to Buting and Strang. I wouldn't think he would go to the appellate attorneys, because how would he even know how to get a hold of who that was? Oh, okay. Now, okay, Julie's correcting this for me. She's putting in snippets of it, so don't blame me. Julie's correcting herself. After watching Ma'am 1, I contacted Avery's trial attorneys. That's what I thought it had said. Travis has said appellate attorneys, but yeah, it sounds like he said he contacted them. So again, I'm thinking this has to be a bit of really bad luck, because if he tried to contact Buting and Strang and it somehow got lost in the whirlwind of Making a Murder 1, that's some really, really bad luck. That's okay, Travis. I still love you. Zellner actually came on board in January. She came on less than a month after it was released. So she was actually signed in less than a month after Ma'am aired. But she wouldn't be known from watching Ma'am 1, because she didn't come on until after that aired. So if he was going to contact he's saying he contacted the trial lawyers. So that means that it somehow got lost in the shuffle somehow. I don't know how he contacted them. He wasn't specific. Did you just call an office and leave a message? Did he leave it with a secretary? Did he have a direct line? Did he leave a voice message for one of the attorneys? We really don't have enough information to know how that slipped through. His Greybird Gandalf. Sounds like it. Also, he said he had a big frame. Gandalf didn't have a big frame. He had a small frame. If he called Buting and Strang and they said they weren't his lawyers and gave him the other lawyer's number, it totally could have been lost in the shuffle. But I would think that they would still know about this, especially if this is coming in after Making a Murderer 1, when it was right in the middle of this big, popularity thing for Buting and Strang, where everybody was loving them. I find it hard to believe that they would just pass it along to another attorney. That's what I'm thinking too, Fen, is that they were probably getting, I don't know if it's necessarily think it was tips. I don't think they probably got a lot of tips. I think that they got a lot of attention, because everybody was trying to get a hold of them for interviews, for speaking engagements, everything. And so I could see it getting lost in the shuffle that way. They became very, very busy. And it's sad if that's what happened, but it happens. Again, we have no idea how this guy actually contacted them. Did he send a letter? I don't know. Yeah, if he didn't specifically say he had a tip, then they might have disregarded it too. They might have not just called some rando guy that called and left a message when he didn't give them any information. So that's possible. There are all sorts of possibilities. And like I said, I could speculate all day, but I would have liked to have seen some corroboration in this affidavit. But I find it hard to believe that Casey would file it if she didn't have something. Because this is really going to, it's great if it pans out because, like I said, this could be a slam dunk Brady violation that could get it overturned, and that's why she's filing it. But she knows this judge. She knows as well as I do and you do that this judge will use any excuse she can to not overturn this. So, you have to weigh whether it's worth delaying everything. And apparently Casey thinks it's worth it. So I think that she needs more than just this guy saying this many years later. You need something to corroborate his story. Not to be rude, but does this guy really know the difference between attorneys? Probably not. And I have more of an issue with the fact that there has been so much publicized about Kathleen being his lawyer, especially ma'am too. So I do not understand why at some point then he didn't reach out to Kathleen. I mean, there's billboards there. There's no way you would have to live in a vacuum to not know that Kathleen Zellner is on this case. So why he took till now to contact her? I mean, the reward wasn't around when Ma'am 2 came out. So is he just now seeing a billboard that says there's a reward? And that bothers me. If the tip did come through Strang and Buting and got overlooked, could that be an effective counsel? Probably not, because they weren't his attorneys at the time. They weren't his attorneys of record, so they couldn't really be ineffective in that point. So that's why I'm wondering, did he find Kathleen by calling the tip line for the reward? But if he did, I would think she'd have to tell them that. You'd have to tell the court that, because he's saying I was offered nothing in return for this, which is technically true. But if, he's calling on a reward, on a tip line for a reward, I would think that was something that you'd have to notify the court of. Well, I think that, let's see, what did Kathleen say here? Let me go back to the beginning. She says on April 11th, a new witness came forward to Mr. Avery's current post-conviction counsel. So she's saying yesterday, this guy came forward. So yeah, so there definitely wasn't any time in between, unless she's lying about the date he came forward. Which means that I would say, just knowing that he came forward yesterday and without showing any corroboration in this, I am concerned that this was filed too prematurely. Like but I just can't believe she would file something without corroboration. This is not something to take lightly because of the delays. So, and obviously Casey knows what she's doing. So, like I said, I just kind of present all sides. I'm not saying that she did anything wrong or anything. I'm just curious. I wish I had more information. Okay, Julie's saying, he's saying in the affidavit, nothing has been promised or given to me in exchange for this affidavit, because him signing that doesn't guarantee him anything. It has to be proven useful, right? Yes, correct. That's why I say technically nothing has been promised to him in return for this. But it can be called into question if it came through a reward tip line. It definitely calls in the credibility a lot more, I think, than it does if this was just some guy that didn't know about the reward and called her. And you have to look at it with everything that the prosecution is going to jump on to. I mean, you can't just ignore it because it's, not what we want to see. You definitely have to make sure you cover everything on both sides so that or you have an idea of which way this is going to come down on. Well, she has to get it filed now, yes, but I'm not saying it had to be filed the next day. I mean, that's really quick. That's a quick turnaround for something this important. No, I'm not saying she should wait a year from now. I'm saying that, I'm surprised she didn't wait a little bit. But again, she might have it. She might have waited as long as she needed to. I can't speculate either way. I'm just putting it out there. I don't want anyone mad at me again because they say that I'm being mean to Casey. No, I'm just giving you every way of looking at it. And you guys can decide. You guys decide. Do you think this is enough? Do you think that there needs to be more? I like to get people thinking. I have always been about supplying information. That has been my most important thing. I want people to get the correct information. I want people to get accurate information. So I like to present all sides just so everybody can think it through on their own and make their decisions. Travis, you never think I'm being mean because you're a lawyer and you understand these things, but other people think I'm just mean. I'm just mean to Casey, and I'm not. I analyze everything just like I analyze the state's stuff. I analyze her stuff, and I try to come up with questions and thoughts and possibilities and theories. And I don't even like theories. Everybody knows that. But I just want to make sure everybody has all the information. And I try to leave my personal feelings out of it because I think you all know what my personal feelings are. Like, yeah, I want this to be overturned. I want him, I want this to be enough, and I want this, but that's not really helping you guys out. How am I providing any kind of service if I'm not presenting all sides to this? Yeah, Angie's the mean one. Just ask anybody, not me. Travis is mean too. Yeah, Travis and I are probably equally mean. That's probably why. Yeah, we do have to wait. Now the state is going to oppose this, I'm sure. So we do have to wait. The next thing will be that we will get, or this is the problem. This is one thing that bothers me, is that the state will file a response to this. But Casey never puts the state's responses up on Twitter for us to see. We always have to wait till somebody gets it from the Court of Appeals. But usually a news outlet will get it. So that's how we usually get it. I wish everything was electronic like it is in the circuit court, but it's not. So hopefully we will get access to that response right away, because I'm really curious to see. I'm curious to see how they defend themselves on this one. I mean, they're gonna have to say we didn't suppress anything. We have no record of this or whatever. They're gonna have to say that. Otherwise, they have no argument. Yeah, Maureen, that's what Travis and I were saying before. We said that it's a risk to not put her whole hand out there, because you don't want to risk it getting denied. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just kind of shooting things out there, and I don't really know what to make of it. I definitely have questions. I have some concerns about certain things. Yes, they have 10 days to file a response. I'm thinking they will, but the court doesn't have to wait. The court can rule anytime. So that's why I was just going to say that I don't think they're not probably going to wait that long, because they don't want the court to rule. If they don't present anything, then the court will just rule. And they might not have an argument to it. They might want to see the entire brief and everything, or they might be scrambling to try to figure out how to defend this. And, and there's other things that have been released, information that's been released that we've had that has gone nowhere. Chris just brought up the white Jeep, so there are a lot of things that this might contradict, or at least put some in a different light. And no matter what, you have to remember, as much as we want this case to be solved, and as much as we want everything that's positive for Steve to be accurate, it's not all going to be accurate. I mean, we've already had things, I can't remember specifically offhand what they are, but we've already had things that once we've kind of looked into them, we're like, that guy doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about. Okay, so Travis just looked it up. They took 2 months to rule on the Bones motion to remand. So we are in a waiting game, unfortunately. If you guys have any other questions, put them in here. I know I missed some as I was talking, because I can't multitask. I can't talk and read at the same time. But I appreciate all of the engagement and the interaction. I'm glad I posted this on all the different platforms, because I got a lot of Facebook comments and a lot of YouTube comments, and even a Periscope, 1 or 2. So thank you, everybody, for being engaged. I enjoy that. But if you have any other questions, put them up there. Because I should probably be wrapping this up soon. I need to go get dinner ready. No, he did not give an excuse as to why he waited to come forward. He didn't say why he waited so long to contact KZ. There was no mention of that, which is a little odd to me, but especially since he mentioned the dates when he came forward and, what precipitated him coming forward for the first two times. He mentioned the first one was, because he saw it and he, saw the news and knew it was a big deal. And the second was because he watched Ma'am 1. So he didn't give a reason. I am having beef stroganoff tonight. It's actually in the slow cooker. So I just have to make the noodles and everything. And then I have to add the sour cream and cream cheese and let it heat up. And then I have to make the noodles for it. Slow cooker beef stroganoff. Well, I guess I can answer the question that was asked very in the beginning. How am I doing? I am doing really good. I obviously still have some issues. My brain isn't really any better. I've been doing a lot of memorization things and I've been able to remember things, but like a ton of people just dropped off when I started talking about myself. Sorry, but a couple people asked and I was waiting for questions. I think like 15 people just logged off all at the same time. I'm having, so I've been doing some memorization things that I'm hoping will kind of make my brain start clicking right and firing on all cylinders, but I'm much better. I won't spend much time on it. But I'm doing much better than I was, but I still walk with a cane. I actually am pretty good in the house, where I have I don't have an open concept house. I have like small rooms. So I don't need the cane in the house, but the minute I walk outside, I still tend to lose my equilibrium. And that makes it difficult for me. So I still have to walk with a cane. I still get dizzy, but it is not anything like it was before. So I'm doing good. I can get by. Still have dizzy spells every day, but again, manageable. So that's how I'm doing. I do believe Angie and I discussed it over the weekend, and I do believe I'm going to come up for the rally. Yes, I am a professional producer now. So now I have to have a nice setup. I have to have my microphone and my nice chair and my lighting. And, I just threw that up as my green screen. I have my other green screens that I use. But yes, I'm a professional now. So I have to act like I know what I'm doing when I'm with clients that I'm doing their podcasts. I actually look like I know what I'm doing. That was the bummer part, was that I was thinking, please don't file something when I'm in the middle of this Zoom call. I was at a Zoom call that was really important. And I actually was 10 minutes late to it because I was posting about, I saw that she filed it and I was trying to at least post that much. And then I realized I was late for the Zoom call. And so I had to jump in on that. And then I saw that it was posted on the website and I was supposed to be listening to my Zoom call and I was trying to, but I was like, come on, I need to be out of this call right now. So it was very hard. It had to take me a little while. Brian, I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? It doesn't bother me that he is just coming forward now. He could be reclusive and a procrastinator. He may not understand the intricacies of his statement being a Brady violation. And that is true. And that's why I said I just kind of like to know like how this all came about. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to know that I never find out. So just because I'm saying I'd like to know doesn't mean I'm ever going to find out. But my curious brain would like to know. That's one thing that has not changed with my brain. My curiosity is still right up there on 11 all the time. And I can't talk to Fen when my mic cover is showing the microphone because her OCD kicks in. You didn't know there's going to be a rally. They're going to do a combined in-person rally and a virtual rally. And since I'm in Wisconsin, it's only a couple hours for me to go up there. And I did get my first shot and I'll get my second shot this weekend. So I'll be vaccinated. Do you think she's expecting the judge to deny it and then it strengthens her case if she wants another judge? Well, I wouldn't say it strengthens her case. It just, she could be, that's the thing. She could just be planning on her denying it and thinking it's just going to be added to this appeal with everything else. I can't think that KZ would ever think that this judge is going to see things Steve's way. I just, based on what's already happened, I don't think she could ever feel confident that this judge is going to rule in Steve's favor. ever. So would it surprise me if KZ went into this already knowing it's going to be denied and just adding it to the appeal? No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Yes, Lisa, I don't know if you were here earlier, but that's kind of what I said, that this happens a lot with witnesses. They will call the police will inform them that we already have the right guy, and then they just never question it after that, and they never think about it again. That happened very famously in the Adnan Syed case too. The witness who could put him in the library at the time of the murder, she notified his attorney, and then she was told that by the prosecution that he was the right guy, that they already had him. And so she was like, okay, then she must not have understood the timeline, or, or if, and she didn't come forward till years later, when after she listened to the podcast Serial and Undisclosed, when she realized that the timeline was wrong and that she could give him an alibi for that time. And she was able to have an evidentiary hearing, and she was able to testify. And at first his conviction was reversed, but then the Court of Appeals came in and reversed that decision. But that is what happened. She came forward later and said that she was told that they had the right guy, and that and she just assumed, since he was convicted, she assumed that, her evidence wasn't important. No, I talked about this earlier. I have no idea who the person with a long white beard could be. Okay. In Manitowoc County, that's not an uncommon look, to be honest. So I personally don't know anybody. And, the only people I would be able to ask would be the family. And I don't think they're going to want to talk about this one. So. Okay, so Sue's saying that KZ said in an interview with John Farrick that this is the biggest breakthrough in 5 years. Well, I think having an eyewitness identify something is absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've always wanted a witness, but we've had eyewitnesses. We have Blaine saying things, and we had other people saying things, and they haven't amounted to much. So I can see why she thinks this is a big breakthrough. But she knows, as an attorney, that a confession or anything from a witness is never going to hold up without corroboration. It's actually in the law that it needs to be corroborated. Now, it's different when you're in a trial, because then you can actually cross-examine the person and you can try to impeach their testimony. Again, that's why this information was so important for when Bobby was on the stand. But in post-conviction, that you can't do that. So that's why they say you need some type of corroboration to prove that this witness saw what he saw, which is really hard, because if you're the only one that saw it, how do you get corroboration? That's why it's so stupid. Or same thing with confessions. There have been people who have confessed to crimes and their confession isn't accepted because they can't corroborate. Nobody can corroborate it, which is like, well, then how does anybody prove that they did something? Yes, someone is saying, who says this is true besides him? And it's an important part to look at when you're talking about credibility within the court system. I believe him because I want to believe him. But did I also say that there's some things I had issue with? Yeah. So, but I certainly want to believe him, because I want this case solved. I want Stephen Brendan to not be in prison anymore. I want to know who really killed Teresa. I wonder if there's any possible way this man saw the blazer being pushed to the mailbox where it was saying later that day. I don't think so. If who says this is, oh wait, okay, sorry. I just saw another comment that it just disappeared. There it is. If a phone call was made, would this tape still be around? Legally, it should be. Whether it is or not, different story. Because, if you didn't know, Manitowoc County is very good at losing things that are important. And again, we don't know if any progress has been made on this 8mm tape. If they found it, better believe Kathleen wants it or has it in her hands now and is trying to decipher it or get it, make it work, since they said it didn't work, whatever that meant. So that's another area we don't know. Yeah, just like the bones should be still be around too. Yeah. So I mean, should it be? Yes. Should you be able to track down a 911 call, or not even a 911 call, just like a tip on a tip line? Yes, you should be able to. You should always be able to track those down. All right, so I should probably wrap it up. So anybody else have any questions? I've only got 78 people, so I've lost a lot of people. And who's to say there wasn't another blue Rav? I think the real thing here is it's odd, no matter what, that they were pushing at, say, 6 a.m. in the morning a vehicle towards the salvage yard. That in itself is suspicious behavior right there. So, I mean, yeah, they can try to claim they were pushing something else, but why? Why would anybody pushing a vehicle, even if it was a vehicle that says broke down and they were pushing it, why would you be doing that at 6 a.m.? And why wouldn't you turn it on unless it was dead? But yeah, there's just, yeah, you can't really say for sure. That's why these things need to be followed up on when they actually happen. But we know that Bobby Dassey has never claimed to be pushing anything on the side of the road. So if it was him, then no matter what he was pushing, there's an explanation needed. And why does he not have a shirt on? That's an odd thing in November or October, but I mean, still October 31st. Our Halloweens in general are not warm here in Wisconsin. They're usually pretty cold, especially at night or early morning. I covered this a little bit earlier, but what's next with steps with what has come out today? The state will probably file a response. If they don't file a response, the court can rule without them filing anything, and the court will make a decision. The Court of Appeals will make a decision on whether or not they're going to allow this to go back to the circuit court and let Kathleen supplement the brief that's already in front of them. And then once she files a brief, then the state will respond. There may be a reply. Usually a time frame will be given by the Court of Appeals when all this has to be done. And then it'll be up to the judge to decide for herself whether this deserves an evidentiary hearing or not. Yeah, the defense was denied the opportunity to explore all of these matters before the trial. That's what Travis is saying. And, if I want to be honest again, there goes me with my honest hat. The defense didn't look for a whole lot either. I still put a lot of that on them. They did not do much by way of investigation. Hi, Millbilly. I'm sure you'll be doing a video of your own, but probably be more thorough at least, or at least you'll know what's going on, since I'm so confused with everything. I just can't remember the details of the case. That's all. I only studied this case for 4 years before I lost my brain. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating that I can't remember basic facts of this case. That frustrates me greatly. But I figured I knew enough about procedure and remembered enough about procedure that I could talk about this with some authority. And I just missed everyone. How long if she denies? Like how long? It depends on how long she takes to rule on it. And then KZ would have to file a supplemental brief with the Court of Appeals. If it's denied by the circuit court, then she has to go back to the Court of Appeals and she has to file they'll probably just let her file a supplemental brief. The state will file theirs. She'll file a reply to that and they'll be added to the Court of Appeals. But where that puts it in the appellate process, I do not know, because it's already been submitted. The briefs have already been submitted. So whether that means they go back in the queue and it'll take 6 more months just for the briefs to get submitted, I don't know. But I'm saying that right now we're looking at 18 to 24 months of this being pushed back, one way or the other. I guess technically it could be 12 months if everything goes quickly. If she denies quickly, she files briefs, we might be looking at 12 months if they don't back it up in the queue, but I would say more like 18 months. If the judge grants the evidentiary hearing, then that timeline will be shorter. But then if she grants a new trial, hooray, then we'll have a new trial by the end of the year. But if she denies, if he loses and after an evidentiary hearing, then that's just pushed off for another 6 to 8 months. And then we go back to the appeal and then the same process. She has to file a brief on this and what happened at the evidentiary hearing. State gets to respond. She'll reply to that. So yeah. Best case scenario, we are looking at 6 to 8 months, I'd say, to overturn a conviction for an evidentiary hearing. Best case. And in that case, the judge will take probably months to decide. So I think best case, we're still looking at 9 months to a year before a decision is made. But if he gets a new trial, now here's the thing. Again, I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but here's the thing. Even if Steve is granted a new trial, he will not be released. He absolutely will not be released. That is just not a practice. They do not release convicted murderers on retrial. So that's a sad thing, is that even if Steve's conviction is overturned, he's going to sit in prison for another year because just waiting for the trial to start. There's no way they will let him out. What happens to the opinions that have already been submitted on briefs? Do you mean I'm not sure what you mean, Julie. There's no opinions have been filed with the Court of Appeals yet. They've just had, all the claims have been submitted, but they haven't made any decisions yet. So I'm not sure what you mean by opinions. Do you mean their earlier opinions from the other remands? Oh, okay. You mean issues, not opinions. While I'm waiting for Julie to clarify, Angie just reminded me to check. I should have said this when I had 150 people here. Angie and I do a podcast that was supposed to be weekly and now is like, whenever we feel like doing it. But it's called the Far From Fab podcast. It has its own YouTube channel. You go to farfromfab.com and you can find us. And it's on all podcast players. So iTunes, everywhere. It's Far From Fab. And we just do it for fun. And we're dumb and we like to laugh at ourselves and we like to laugh at life. And so if you ever just want to pick me up and I had to do something after this case that just is positive or at least funny for me to do because, oh gosh, I need stress relief so bad. Okay. Well, now I'm going to have to, yes, Fen and Julie listen to Far From Fab. I don't know. I can't copy that, Julie. I can't copy it. Can you put it as is it a clickable? Is it a clickable link? Oh, there in YouTube it is. Let me see what you're talking about. These are just the opinions that are scheduled for release. So I'm still not sure what you're talking about. Julie, you're killing me here. Okay, I'm clicking on things. Let's see. Yeah, well, there won't be any opinion on what's submitted right now because they're pausing the appeal. Any previous opinions, are part of the record. But the opinion on this, hasn't been one, and because they're still awaiting that, and now they're going to pause the submitted on briefs. That's what it means. They submitted the briefs to the judges for evaluation. And they're asking to stay that right now. So that would be paused. Nothing would happen on that. They can't be changed. She can add to it. If they allow her to. I said, again, this is kind of uncharted territory. I don't know what happens when you have a case that's already submitted on briefs and it's already being reviewed, supposedly. And then you also want to remand it back. I have to assume they have to allow her to do so because she cannot be forced to be in a procedural bar situation. So I would assume that they're going to have to allow her to do this. It's just really weird because it never happens. But all of that stuff in those briefs are being paused. So yeah, so nothing is happening with the appeal now. Nothing will happen. It's completely just stopped. Whatever process it was in, wherever it was in the queue for appeals is done. No. When they submitted on when it says submitted on briefs, that just means that they're going to decide the case on briefs alone, and there will not be an oral argument scheduled. but they haven't given an opinion yet. Opinion is decision. Opinion and decision equal the same thing. There's no decision, so therefore there's no opinion. Okay, glad I cleared that up for you. So I was so confused at what you were asking. But yes, they're paused. So those who came in late, they are going to be pausing this appeal. And if Steve's case is overturned, his conviction is overturned based on this new one, but on this new claim, then all those other claims are done. They're considered moot at that point. Travis and I were going back and forth trying to figure that out earlier, and we came to that conclusion because the conviction's been overturned. So none of those, you don't need to ask for a new trial anymore when he's getting a new trial. So all those other claims would be moot. The only thing that would be kind of a bummer about that is that it would never be established what was suppressed and what wasn't, and they would basically be let off the hook for a lot of that. Okay, so Natalie is saying someone in the family group has said a police officer is backing up this latest news. That would be great. If you could get a police officer to corroborate this information, that would be amazing. And that puts this claim in a whole new ballpark. Yeah, I always take everything that's posted in groups with a grain of salt, because there's been so much that has been posted over the years that ends up being somebody just wanted attention, or, somebody just didn't get all their facts. Somebody, just whatever, there's been a lot of reasons why people post stuff. So I don't usually get my hopes too high, but it's always interesting, at least. And it's something that if it's true, that would be amazing. Well, she might not have known. That might not be her corroboration, Sue. I mean, that might be something new. She might have had it corroborated another way, and now some police officer saying, I can corroborate this. I have not heard of any police officers being in the family group, because most of them, if we could get information from LE, we probably would know a lot more about this case, but everybody's been pretty tight-lipped about it. So I don't know. So, all right. Oh, Natalie, I'm going to be concluding here, because now it's almost 4:30 and I still have to get my dinner going. Well, it's cooking, but I have to finish it up. Okay, and Travis asked another question. Travis, so here's a question. Once a case has been fully briefed, does the motions judge lose jurisdiction to rule on motions to remand, or does it go to the 3-judge panel? Again, don't know. I've never seen this happen before. It should still be up to the motions judge, I would think. Because, but who knows? I do not know the procedure at this point, because it is rare. Am I going to say it's never happened? No, because I don't know every case, but I've never seen it. We had a hard time just finding cases that were remanded for any reason. We only found like 2 cases in all of Wisconsin law that had happened before. And so I've never seen a case where it's been remanded when it was submitted on briefs already, and it was already basically in the judge's hands. Yeah, we had that one case, Travis, that we looked at, and I can't remember the name, of course, but we had that one Wisconsin case that was very similar, but I don't think that was submitted after briefs. I think that they remanded it prior to briefs being submitted. But again, nothing that I could come up with. Travis will look. I'm not going to. Travis will look again. Right. Yeah, what Travis is saying, it's different when there's the death penalty involved, because you basically get an endless supply of appeals and motions that can be filed when you have a death penalty case. Cases like this that are life in prison are meant to have a finality to them. And that's why they make it so hard to file a post-conviction motion that gets anywhere. That's why they have this procedural bar issue and everything, because they don't make it easy. So yeah, so I don't know what the procedure is. Wasn't sure. I talked in the video I did with Paul. I said that I wasn't sure what she could do if she had new information come up now. I wasn't sure if you'd be allowed to present something new once it's already submitted in front of the judges, or if you were going to have to wait until this appeal played out and then submit it as new evidence, which she'd absolutely be able to do. I mean, she's notifying the court. She has this new evidence. If they deny it, they can't bring up procedural bar later and say that, well, you should have presented it earlier. She tried. You know, okay, it's not her fault. It came to her attention mid-appeal. So I'm not sure how they handle it, because they might say that this appeal is going to go forward as scheduled, and you can present this later in a successive petition if necessary. But that doesn't make a lot of sense, because usually the court is going to want to just rule on everything and be done with it. They don't want to go through this whole thing again. So I'm very curious to see, because I'm always curious about procedure and how they handle things, because that's what, I mean, that interests me. And we seem to be always breaking new ground with Steve's case. Nothing is a straight line in Steve's case. It's always jumping all over the place and making new rules and breaking with traditional procedure. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Hopefully everybody got to ask what they wanted to ask. I still have 70 people here. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Again, you know, I still post in my Facebook group. I know I don't post as much, but I still post when there's something there's newsworthy. I will still post and I will still update you guys. So I just don't do anything else in the group right now. So if you still want to be in the Facebook group, just look me up on Facebook, Scales of Injustice, and you can follow me on Twitter. I still post that. I actually have a Scales of Injustice Twitter that I created. I kind of forgot about that because I wanted to put everything on there, but I'll probably still just stream it to my main Twitter, even though Twitter's changing things. And obviously, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll always know. You'll get, you know, notified when I do things. And then, yeah, if you would like, please, to support mine and Angie's podcast, check out farfromfab.com or the Far From Fab podcast on iTunes or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. We'd really love the support. I don't have nearly as many people there paying attention to me. I think our YouTube channel has like 23 followers or something. So yeah, we'd like to get a little bigger group to watch that. It's fun. It's just for fun. All right, then I'm going to wrap it up. See you guys soon. And I will be back whenever we hear something, either response from the state or a decision from the court. We'll be back and we'll talk about that then. All right. Everybody have a good night. See ya.